So my question to you is, because you were at Carlson Tucker, or Tucker Carlson, sorry, in March or February 2021, and you said, I really hope we wake up quickly, because history shows that it's a small window in which people can fight back before it's too dangerous to fight back, which is a good statement. But what was your moment that your eyes opened and that you saw that something was completely wrong?
Well, I have to say that it was one moment on March, I think it was 8th, 2020, when the governor of New York closed Broadway all at once.
Okay.
And my husband and I have both been in conflict areas, and places where emergencies are unfolding and emergency law is about to be imposed. And we both, like that minute, said we've got to get out of, the greater Manhattan area. And we moved upstate into the woods, where we stayed for the next 3 years, because we both understood that this is not America, right? And, that's a very communist or totalitarian gesture to close a whole industry all at once by fiat, right? Without any consent or due process. So we both recognized that. And the other was, I guess, June of 2020, when, again, our governor said that no more than 6 people could gather in a home, and that I know my constitution, and that's thoroughly unconstitutional. And so I immediately held an illegal potluck and put it in the media. And there I met a lot of health freedom activists who were completely ignoring the lockdown and the scare tactics. And they looked super healthy. They all crowded together. We all shared food, and no one got sick. Then I joined that community, and they were living their lives completely normally, and no one was getting sick. And I that was eye-opening to me. And it also, I think, helped me not go crazy, right? Because when you're isolated and being bombarded with propaganda all day long, you have no way to measure what you're being told against reality. It becomes a Platonic, like Plato's cave. I guess the other thing that really prepared me well to recognize what was going on quickly was I wrote a book in 2012 called The End of America. And in it, I'm sorry, it was 2008, it was the Bush era. And in that book, I studied coups. I studied democracies that had been crushed by totalitarian regimes, whether from the left or from the right. And so I saw from that book, and looking at the history of how totalitarianism crushes democracies, that all people who want to do that take the same 10 steps. I called it 10 steps to fascism. And martial law or emergency law is the last step. And we were all at once at emergency law, meaning the rule of law has been suspended. They can do anything to you. So that book definitely prepared me to recognize what was going on.
Okay, clear. It was rather scary. I mean, but you talk about propaganda. I can talk to anyone and they don't see it that way. So how come we can talk and it's impossible to talk to other people? I mean, if you use the word propaganda, they declare you to be insane.
Look, are you in Spain right now?
Yep.
So the world is currently under various censorship regimes, and most of Europe is under a more severe bubble of censorship, and also Canada, than is the United States. So and many news outlets in that are respected news outlets in Europe are state outlets, right? Like, the BBC, for example. Yep. So, and, RT in Ireland. And so there's kind of a hegemony of voices in Europe. And as a result, I think Europeans were able to be coerced more absolutely than Americans in terms of information flow. So we've got a robust kind of alternative media in the United States, and we have a First Amendment. So you our government tried to collude with Twitter and Facebook to censor dissenting voices, pointing out propaganda and that the propaganda was wrong. And they succeeded for a while, but then lawsuits led to a decision at the Supreme Court level that was not okay. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it was at the Supreme Court level, but it was a successful lawsuit from a high court saying that was unconstitutional. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're in Europe or in Canada or in Australia, where virtually all of the alternative voices are crushed or penalized or threatened in some way, or people are delicensed, as in Canada, or there are hate speech laws, as in Canada, you really don't have free speech. And I'm frustrated at the situation no, truly in Canada and in Europe and in Britain, because ever since 2008, I've been trying to warn people, don't get misled by hate speech laws. Of course, they start with, speech that everyone can kind of agree is objectionable, but sooner or later it'll be your speech and my speech. And obviously I wasn't successful at kind of alerting people. The other problem, honestly, is the EU. You have, and I wrote about this in the Bodies of Others, in the European Union for the last, few decades, nation states have been dissolved and the power of nation states have been dissolved. And as a result, people don't know what to do to resist. They really don't have, legislative power anymore at a Portuguese level or at a Spanish level or at a, French level to resist a WEF/EU diktat of, social credit score or digital currency, or you have to be vaccinated to travel, as was the case in France for a while, I gather. So both of those things together, the censorship of social media, the hegemonization of the media, the fact that you don't have a First Amendment, you don't have a constitution, and the fact that you've lost your nation states, to the power of the EU means, and I'm an anti-racist, so we can talk about why it's possible to feel strongly that the nation state saves people, which I feel right now, and that is not a racist position, right?
No, not at all.
All together mean that truly in Europe, how will people know that it's propaganda? Unless they're tuned in somehow to Steve Bannon or to, my Rumble channel or to Dr. McCullough's videos, how will they know? They have to really seek out the information.
So you see a difference between the United States and Europe? I mean, if you walk the streets, you have the feeling that people do have an idea about what's going on, because in Europe, the people have no clue. But you feel a difference in the United States? People are aware of what's happening?
Do more and more. I do. It was, marginal awareness, but now I would say it's 50-50, because half the country is red states, and they're listening to Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, me, and also I guess we have a vestige of well, I can't stress this enough, the First Amendment. I mean, if you're just poking around on Twitter, the algorithm will serve up some dissenting voices, and also our history is skepticism. So we're not as skeptical as we should be. Too many people in America didn't ask questions, and I've written about that. But we have a history of knowing that powerful forces that are trying to can lie to us. Yep. So it is getting better here. It's not as good as it should be, but it's getting better. But I know there are pockets of dissidence in Australia and Canada as well. I just really worry that you guys don't have, and I've written about this in my upcoming book, Facing the Beast. I really worry about Europe and Australia and New Zealand and Canada, because you guys don't have, and I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, just like set out a goal. You don't have a First Amendment, you don't have a Fourth Amendment, and you don't have a Second Amendment. So if, like, maybe maybe most people really believe the nonsense, but maybe a lot of people are scared not to believe the nonsense because they are keeping them in quarantine camps in Australia. They are delicensing and debanking them in Canada. Like terrible things are happening to dissidents in these very recently, strong, robust democracies.
True. We could talk on for hours, but let's skip to the War Room Daily Cloud affair. Could you please explain quickly what the War Room is?
Sure. So War Room is a podcast that the conservative commentator Steve Bannon runs. And I think it's the #1 or #2 political podcast in America. And I don't share his politics, but I respect his journalism. And he invited me after I was censored and deplatformed. Well, legacy media purchase for an accurate tweet noting that women were having menstrual problems subsequent to being injected with this mRNA injection. He gave me a platform to bring my reporting to his audience. And he also, when the Pfizer documents were released, subsequent to a successful lawsuit, after the FDA asked the court to keep them hidden for 75 years, and the court said no, we both were concerned that the volume of documents and the technical language they were written in would lead them to be lost to history. So he prompted me on his podcast to put out a call for experts, medical experts, to read them. I did, and now we have 3,500 medical and scientific experts in 6 teams under the leadership of my COO, Amy Kelly, and they've produced 80 reports about what's in the Pfizer documents, and they've uncovered, honestly, it's the best journalism of the century, to say the least. They've uncovered the greatest crime against humanity in recorded history.
What are the biggest discoveries they made? I mean, you mentioned COVID being a side effect of the vaccines as a third, the third biggest discovery. What are the 2 biggest ones?
Well, in terms of the most common side effects, the first most common side effect in the Pfizer documents is joint pain, like rheumatoid arthritis or arthritic type pain. And you do see so many people. I know so many people with knee replacements, hip replacements, shoulder replacements, young people, healthy people. So that's a massive side effect in the Pfizer documents. Excuse me. The second is myalgia, which is muscle pain. I know people who are really crippled with muscle pain. The third most common side effect is COVID. And
but we're talking about side effects that were in the documents. I mean, this is a big difference with what we experience from VARS or whatever system. I mean, the difference is that you discovered it, or you discovered that Pfizer knew before they put out the vaccine that those were the side effects, which is...
It's not before they put out the vaccine. It's like people really don't understand. We are the test, right? We are the experiment. So they rolled it out in November of 2020, at least in the United States. And the documents cover November of 2020 to February of 2021. So that's what they were getting reports of from the population in the what's called the post-marketing period. Meaning we're the guinea pigs. So they knew by February of 2021 that there were 158,000 adverse events, that 1,225 people had died. 4 of them died within 48 hours of receiving the injection. They knew that the vaccine didn't work to stop COVID, as noted. By 1 month in, the documents show that Pfizer had concluded vaccine failure and failure of efficacy. So the whole drama was fake, right? The whole thing was fake when it came to curing COVID, right? They knew by May of 2021 that they were damaging the hearts of healthy young people. 35 minors sustained heart damage within, again, a week of being injected. But the FDA didn't warn parents about heart damage risks until 4 months later, after a giant campaign to get teenagers mRNA vaccinated. They knew that, well, they had to hire hundreds of full-time staffers to deal with the flood of adverse event reports they were getting. I'm going to fast forward. I mean, I guess what people really need to understand is that the Pfizer documents show side effects that are not disclosed by the CDC or the, European Medical EMA, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
all industrial scale neurological events, Parkinson's, dementias, Alzheimer's, convulsions, neuropathies, uh, strokes, massive numbers of blood problems, blood clots, lung clots, leg clots, thrombocytopenia, and these lipid nanoparticles coalesce in the blood. There are so many heart problems, tachycardia, myocarditis, pericarditis, and these the lipid nanoparticles and the spike protein interfere, according to Dr. McCullough and our own experts, with the electrical impulses that keep the heart beating regularly, which is why so many people are dying suddenly with like a surge of adrenaline on the playing field, or before you wake up, like 6 in the morning, there's a surge of adrenaline. So the heart can't manage that the way it used to. You've got Guillain-Barré, Bell's palsy, liver damage. Half the people in our study had adverse events with liver damage within 48 hours. Kidney damage, again, half of the adverse events within 48 hours, some fatalities. They knew that the lipid nanoparticles and the spike protein and the mRNA, certainly the lipid nanoparticles and the spike protein biodistribute throughout the human body, even though they said it stays in the deltoid. That was a lie. They knew it. It biodistributes within 48 hours to every organ in the human body and accumulates in the liver, the brain, which is why so many people have brain changes or brain fog or rage, personality changes. Biodistributes in the adrenals, the spleen, and if you're a woman, in your ovaries.
And all known to Pfizer.
All known to Pfizer.
Because that's the whole point.
Exactly. And I guess I'll fast forward and say, like, they knew many, many catastrophic things, but the real focus of the Pfizer documents, which is so chilling, is not the damage to this generation. It's the damage to reproduction. And what's deeply, deeply disturbing about the Pfizer documents is a 360-degree focus on destroying human reproduction.
And they know it.
Oh yeah.
You did all the information you're giving me. You got it from the Pfizer documents.
Not my opinion. And anyone has questions, which they should, you can go to dailycloud.io and read all these reports for free.
Yep.
And you can click through and see the primary source documents cited in these 80 reports. Or you can order the book on Amazon, the Pfizer documents book, and you'll see the citations right there. So there's no reason to take my word for it.
I do, but
what I'm trying to say is Pfizer designed the injection to destroy human reproduction. For example, this is a respiratory disease, right? There's virtually nothing in the Pfizer documents about lungs or mucous membranes. It's all about reproduction. So, for instance, they mated rats, vaccinated male and unvaccinated female rats. Then they sacrificed the rats. They didn't examine their lungs. They examined their sex organs. They knew that the lipid nanoparticles traverse every membrane in the human body, including the placenta. So they're compromising the placentas of vaccinated women. They knew this. 2 babies die in utero, and the Pfizer documents describe this as due to maternal exposure to the vaccine. So they know that the materials of the vaccine are hurting the baby in utero, traversing the placenta. 3 separate maternal medicine specialists, Jim Thorpe, Ellen Jasmer, a midwife, and a third person, a second midwife, all are confirming that in their practice, and I just heard this again yesterday from another midwife who is scared to come forward, they're seeing compromised placentas that are flat, placentas that are have nettings of calcifications, so the baby isn't getting nutrients or oxygen in utero, and that women are having to deliver early these tiny babies because the placentas don't grow because they're compromised by the lipid nanoparticles. Pfizer knew that babies born to vaccinated moms would have pockets of air between their tiny lungs and their tiny chest walls. And that's what these midwives are seeing, that babies go home, they seem fine, but within a day, they're back in the ER, unable to breathe. Pfizer knew that would happen due to exposure to the vaccine. Pfizer knew that the lipid nanoparticles would enter the testes of baby boys in utero, because the testes are surrounded by a membrane. So again, they degrade every membrane. And so what happens when the lipid nanoparticles enter the testes is they degrade the Sertoli cells and the Leydig cells, which are the factories of masculinity, the hormones that turn on adult masculinity. So deep voices, body hair, the ability to father a child are being, those capabilities are being switched off.
All known to Pfizer, all
Totally.
discovered by Pfizer, reported in their documents, and discovered then by your people.
Exactly. And what I really need to stress is it's not coincidental, right? Like, it's not like, oh, we're hurting the babies, let's move on, or oh, we're destroying women's menstrual cycles, let's move on. There are charts, you know, they zero in on the harm they're doing and break it down in this very Nazi-ish, Nazi medicine way. And I say that, you know, I'm Jewish, and I say that as the granddaughter of a woman who lost 9 siblings to the Holocaust. I don't say it lightly, but it is Mengele science, because they'll have like a chart that shows, has like 20 different categories of awful things that can happen to a woman's menstrual cycle. And there are like 15,000 women in one cell, 10,000 women in another cell, thousands and thousands of women. And it's like bleeding every single day, 2 periods a month, no periods at all, meaning no fertility, 0 fertility, hemorrhaging, you know, passing tissue. So many women are passing weird tissue that, you know, is completely, and they have studied it and they kept going.
But if even 1% of what you're saying right now was being discovered by Pfizer, they should have stopped the whole thing straight away. Am I wrong?
Obviously, of course. I mean, Dr. McCullough has called this the most lethal and damaging injection in the history of medicine. And you can see that in VAERS, you know, it's just off the charts. But certainly, like, the swine flu vaccine was stopped after 50 deaths. There are 1,225 deaths in 3 months, you know. I mean, which of these, like, the first time you see that you're compromising the fertility of a woman, of course you pull it off the shelves.
Yeah.
But and they kept going. And not only did they keep going, you've got these charts showing the damage they're doing to women, or the damage they're doing, like a special report, right, in April of 2021, pregnancy and lactation report showing that babies are dying and that babies are being poisoned, and some are dying. In the Pfizer documents, 1 died, and others are getting very sick due to lipid nanoparticles and polyethylene glycol, a petroleum product in vaccinated mom's breast milk. And they put this summary together showing that babies are getting sick and dying. There's a chart in that summary, like the menstruation chart, but this one shows how many babies are being tortured in what way. This many babies are vomiting. This many babies have chills. This many babies have swelling of the tissue. And they know it's from nursing from vaccinated moms. And they send that report, this 8-page report, this is our report 69, you can look at it, to the White House. And 3 days later, on April 23rd, 2021, Dr. Walensky, our then CDC director, gave a press conference at the White House telling pregnant women to get vaccinated and saying it's safe and effective for pregnant women, and that there's no bad time to be vaccinated: before you get pregnant, during your pregnancy, after your pregnancy. There are 2 sections in the Pfizer documents that show that women are losing their babies upon being injected. One of them shows a miscarriage rate of over 80%.
It's rather big. I knew it would be big, but this is bigger than I thought it would be. How did they gather their information? I mean, you have the VARs. How did they get their information? Where did they get their notifications of side effects from? Pfizer.
Well, Pfizer is studying us, you know, so they, you know, some of it is pre-marketing studies, and again, they got to what they announced through cheating and bad math. For instance, they announced that the injection was 95% effective.
Yeah.
As COVID reached that math was that they just got rid of 200 vaccinated people who were sick with COVID. If they had included them, it would have had negative efficacy from the start, excuse me, meaning that you're more likely to get COVID if you get vaccinated. And that's what we're finding now. Studies are showing that people who are vaccinated are more likely to get COVID. They knew that from the start. So some of it is before the injection was rolled out, and the rest of it is reports that they get from their researchers subsequent to the injection being rolled out.
This, I mean, if you hadn't dove into it, nothing would have happened, because it would probably have happened as you predicted it, or Steve Benning. It would have been so much that no one could have given head or tail to what was being published by Pfizer. So
That's true.
what's being done with all this information that you discovered from the Pfizer documents? I mean, what's the uproar? What's happening?
Well, quite a lot is happening. I mean, obviously, these criminals are not yet in the dock for crimes against humanity. So that obviously should happen. But we've published a book with all the reports, and it was a bestseller. So the information is getting out there. I just distributed it to 200 doctors and nurses yesterday in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and people are sending it to their doctors, sending it to hospitals. Pfizer's, and through interviews like this, which I do all day long, and Amy Kelly, Pfizer's manufacturing demand is down 89%, and their shares are tanking. People don't know that Pfizer is not a German company. It's a German-Chinese company. BioNTech, which is the subsidiary which makes the injections, partnered with Fosun Pharmaceuticals, which is essentially run by senior members of the Chinese Communist Party. And they had a contract to manufacture 1 billion doses of the injection, but not for China's use. They don't use this injection for export to Western Europe, where they opened 14 manufacturing plants, in the United States, where they opened 2 manufacturing plants. And in 2021, the IP was transferred to China. So, and it says that in the SEC filing, not to a Chinese company or a Chinese individual. It says to China, to the nation of China. So China wants to kill us. I mean, I don't know how to say it more politely. They want to wipe out Western Europe. They want to wipe out the United States. They want to be the global hegemon by 2049, which is the 100-year anniversary of the Communist Party establishing itself in China. So people have to understand that this, I believe this is a bioweapon as a result of seeing that it's being manufactured by China. When you get this injection now, you're getting something that is compiled, manufactured, distributed by China, the West's existential adversary, an entity that, organ harvests their own people and sends their own minorities to concentration camps. So there are hearings in Congress coming up. We have 2 lawsuits. We asked the Justice Department to open an investigation of Pfizer, and another lawyer of ours has also sued Pfizer on behalf of people who were injured by the injection. And we're trying to get rid of the PrEP Act, which gives pharma companies in the United States immunity. I mean, Rochelle Walensky left 3 days after our Report 69 showed that she had known that the injection kills babies and told women to get injected anyway if they were pregnant. So, Dr. Fauci left. So I see a lot of progress. No one is lining up for the booster in the United States. They're trying to roll it out again this fall to make more billions. And I don't know anyone who's looking forward to that. We got rid of mandates in 33 states through drafting a piece of legislation called the 5 Freedoms Bill. We got rid of vaccine mandates, so you can't bring those back in 33 states unless you pass new legislation. So that's what we're doing. I mean, I guess I could ask, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to spread your words and busy with it for years now. I discovered long ago that things were wrong, and I'm trying whatever I can. But my weapon is writing, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to warn people wherever I can. But now we have this Digital Service Act in Europe, so my words are really being censored. It's very difficult. If I send you, for example, a blog, Norton, the virus blocker, will tell you that it's dangerous to open it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's quite horrible to get the word
Oh,
out.
when
It's
can you opposition to that, or I mean, how can you oppose really? But that's horrible.
people dig their heads in the sand. I mean, there's no talking to them. Some people are awake. People are waking up, but not at the scale that we need to. I mean, I'm Dutch. There's
Yeah.
new elections in the Netherlands in November. People should vote differently, but they will keep voting for the same parties, and nothing will change. And it's a horrible situation.
But
It's
if
almost impossible to get people to wake up.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't know that that had gone through. It's called the Digital Services Act. As
Yeah.
long as you've got, it doesn't matter, who's in power, because people won't be able to get access to the information at all.
Well, it's complicated. I mean, people find me or find my colleagues that are try preaching the same thing, but it's very hard. I mean, usually or no, in the earlier days, I just sent out an email and I posted on LinkedIn, and whatever, same thing you do probably, and people read your article. You could read the times that your articles were read, and now it's very difficult to spread your word because according to the Digital Service Act, you can say whatever you want. It's absolute freedom of speech, but the social media platforms are prohibited to spread your words.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. So freedom of speech, I get it. They're going to try to do that here with Twitter, freedom of reach. Wait, freedom, not freedom of reach is what they're saying.
This,
That's so bad. Oh my gosh, that is so bad. I don't know what to say. I mean, how do you roll that back? Is that an EU level piece of legislation? Those evil doers,
yep.
those scumbags. And so, really, even if you elect leadership in the Netherlands that opposes that piece of legislation, can they get rid of it for the Netherlands because
Nope.
it's EU?
They,
Unbelievable.
they should get out of the EU, and some parties want to, but we've been made so scared of that by Brexit.
Yeah.
But I lived in the United Kingdom for a year, and people are very happy with Brexit.
Yeah.
But they're using it in the rest of Europe to tell the people, well, watch out, because if you want to get out of the EU, the same will happen to you as happened to the UK. So please stay in. But
Wow.
people have no sense of what's happening anymore, and it's a horrible situation.
That is truly appalling. I'm so sorry. I mean, that's really stunning because I'm in touch with people in Britain. I've been there post Brexit and they were surviving just fine. But the rest of Europe is being told, oh, there's food shortages or medical shortages. What are they being told about Britain and
Because
Brexit?
of Brexit, which is
Oh,
untrue.
untrue. Wow.
But
Unbelievable.
no, it's very hard, and but people just don't want to know. They want their life, they want their vacations, and they want to live in their concrete box and sort of 15-minute cities and whatever. It doesn't matter to them. And first of all, they don't believe you. They simply
Right.
say, no, 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 no. Our governments are strong. Our governments will protect us, and our democracies are strong, and we don't have
My
to
God.
worry about a thing. And
So
uh,
just,
and they're lining up now for the fifth or the fourth or the sixth booster.
God forbid. Are you serious? Is
I'm
that
very
happening?
serious.
Oh my God. Oh my God. They're going to die.
Yeah, I know, because the more of the stuff you get into yourself, the more risk you're taking, and it's a horrible situation. But they simply have giving themselves up to the government. The
Oh
government
my,
is all powerful, and they believe that. And I mean, it's starting in 2 weeks. I think it's the big autumn vaccination campaign, and
are there mandates still? Like you have to get injected to enter places or to,
no, not that I heard of, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come back, and the largest part of the population will just go along with them, and
unbelievable.
it's
This is
horrible.
important what you're doing. I can't, I don't know what to say. This is a catastrophe. I mean,
It is.
I've got an essay called Facing the Beast, which is in my book, Facing the Beast, which is coming out, that shows that there was an experiment in Hong Kong in 2021. Hong Kong, of course, is the Chinese Communist Party now. And they injected a rats with mRNA vaccines, and there was some damage. The second injection was catastrophic damage, and it enlarged the hearts, and you could see white patches on their hearts. I mean, this is a weapon that's designed to kill people
Yep.
over the course of 6 injections. I mean, that's what my husband legally, who's an investigator, found the CDC form internally that shows that they always wanted to have 6 injections. By the time you've got 6 injections, you're going to be sterile, dead, have a turbo cancer, neurologically incapacitated. I mean, this is a catastrophe. Europe will be depopulated after
Yep.
6 injections.
My landlord died a few weeks ago, within 4 days after getting sick. It's what's happening. I mean, there is, and people don't want to know. They simply don't want to know. One thing that I think is important, and it's purely your opinion on that matter. I mean, if you ask me, there is like a globalist coup going on, and it's for the first time that I speak to someone who's clearly pointing at the Chinese. So
Right.
where do you see the distinction between this Chinese coup, or whatever we call it, and the globalist coup? It's in the book.
Yeah, there's no distinction. I'm sorry, I don't mean to self-promote, but I'm holding up the bodies of others where I go into who's behind it. And basically, you're right, it's a globalist coup, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But I see them using China, and China kind of using the opportunity, as a cat's paw. They the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization is basically China. China is the largest voice, biggest funder, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So basically, the globalists would rather have a planet in which China is the hegemon and China is their puppet,